Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football, and welcome to Season 5 of Hardcore Penn State Football. Today we'll be talking about the transfer portal closing, Penn State's 2026 schedule that has now been released, as well as some recruiting news, which 'tis the season. Thank you for being here. Let's get right into the show. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Lestochi. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How you doing today, Shawn?
Okay, can you hear me?
I got you now. I was like, I guess you're not doing very well because I didn't hear you for a second.
Yes, yeah. You cut out on my end as well, so I'm doing good. I do want to say, man, I really want to. Our hearts go out to Bill Belichick. He's a real victim here. He had.
Feel pretty bad about that.
He's really suffering today. He has to wait a whole year to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and man, oh man, just devastated. It's going to ruin the Hall of Fame forever. That a known cheater has to wait a whole year to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. I don't know how he's going to handle it. The poor guy. Poor Bill.
I think he might be okay.
But outside of that, I'm doing great, Cory.
It's good to hear, Shawn. You're staying warm. Are you hearing me okay? You got me?
Yeah, you're kind of coming in and out a little bit.
How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Well, Shawn, we are officially into Season 5 of Hardcore Penn State Football. We did the Hardy's show at the beginning of the month. We've kind of wrapped that up. Just, again, appreciate everybody who chimed in on that. We ended up with, if you were curious, number of replies we got. We ended up taking 50 replies on that. I don't think there was any massive changes. But we ended up getting quite a few responses, so we appreciate that tremendously. I'll read off a couple of the additional responses that we got as far as any additional feedback, but really a lot of it just kind of went with. Well, we'll read the one comment. This season was not easy to watch at times. I appreciate that y'all kept it real all year long, as I'm sure it wasn't always easy to record with the early disappointments. So appreciate that. That was a very nice comment, whoever you were. Don't know who you are when you respond. Anyway, done with 2025. Let's head into 2026. Shawn, a lot to talk about. Penn State coming off of probably their biggest recruiting weekend last weekend, which hopefully it's not a bad omen that it was a very rough weekend from a snow perspective. Most of it held off till Sunday. But for example, running back Kamon Spell was supposed to visit and didn't, and now he's heading down to Georgia. Take that for what you will. But a lot of recruits were on campus in sort of Matt Campbell's first wave. A lot of players that Penn State originally had committed, like a Khalil Taylor, have now already locked in a official visit in the summer in June. So that's good to see some of that momentum starting. We're into that season now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the show. The transfer portal is closed as well, and so that is wrapped up. Penn State took 36. Someone said 37, but I believe it's 36 transfers in this class, if you want to call it that, and it ended up with approximately 15 players in the 2026 class as well, which the final rankings came out, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, the final rankings, but a couple of players did move up a little bit. And then finally, the Big Ten decided to finally release their football schedule in the most kind of asinine way possible. That is so frustrating to try to watch when you just want your team's schedule released, and they're doing it like week at a time. But we have that as well. and it's relatively pretty favorable for Penn State. And I guess Notre Dame fans are not happy about that. Which, when are they happy? So a lot to talk about, Shawn. A lot to talk about. Because I went in that order, let's go in that order, shall we? Let's start with recruiting and put you on the spot a little bit. Penn State finished with 15 commits in their class. We've spoke about them a lot. The one that I wanted to bring up, I don't think we had spoken about since the last episode, but it was somebody who we thought Penn State was going to be able to eventually flip from Iowa State, and that's Elijah Reeder, the 3-star edge from New Jersey, a guy we spoke about quite a bit. Finally he decommitted from Iowa State, but took a little bit to commit. I think he officially committed a week ago. But top 10 player in the state of New Jersey, and rose up the rankings in this last release of rankings for rivals, especially.
Yeah, this is a guy that Penn State has had their eyes on for a while. Pretty raw, only 210 pounds now, and 6'4.5". So he'll definitely be adding weight when he gets here. But like you said, former Iowa State commit right in our backyard, made all the sense in the world that he would end up at Penn State, and he has. So, and then as far as 2026 goes as well, we're now up to the number 69 ranked recruiting class in the country for high school. And I think that might go up too if Penn State's able to reel in Samson Gash, who was on campus this past weekend as well. Legacy recruit. You old timers will remember Sam Gash, his father. And he is a current Michigan State commit. Penn State's working hard to flip him right now. So signing day, I believe, is in a week or two. I believe a week. So Penn State is going to look to hopefully be able to flip him. And he, in my estimation, will be the last commit if he does decide to commit to Penn State in this high school class for 2026.
Wednesday, February 4th, just to confirm that for those that are listening.
Next week.
Yeah, Shawn, I think that's one. I think he just came out and again said that it's between Michigan State and Penn State now. I think that re-release, I feel like that's been that way for a while. Maybe there was someone else involved. Was it USC that was involved?
Georgia.
A little bit? Oh, Georgia.
Georgia got involved. I'm not sure who cooled on who, but he had stayed committed to Michigan State even during the coaching change, and Pat Fitzgerald would be big for Pat Fitzgerald to be able to hang on to him, and it would be big for Matt Campbell to be able to flip him. So 2 new coaches, 2 guys at a new school going at it too. And yeah, we'll have to see what happens there.
Excellent. Is there anyone else in the 2026 class you wanted to mention? I think we covered it pretty well as they kind of flipped. Most of them have obviously enrolled. The only 4, I believe, less are Reeder, Kaiser. I thought we mentioned Pete. Yeah, we did. Eglitis. I think we spoke about him last time. And then we definitely talked about Ten Brock last time as well, the punter. So I think those are the only ones that haven't officially signed. But if you want to jump, Shawn, Penn State, one of the few schools that doesn't have a 2027 commit. There's some names you want to bring up there.
Yeah, I think you're going to want to get started with Kane Spell. I'll be honest with you, Cory. I kind of wasn't feeling great about Kane Spell. Just from everything that a lot of the recruiting guys have said, both publicly and then, behind paywalls, but I'm not speaking out of turn here since they talk about it publicly as well. This is going to be a money thing. Our money's going to be heavily involved. It's not going to be the whole thing, but money is going to play a factor. And let's be real, Penn State has gotten beaten out under the last regime and then this current regime for these high-priced guys. But it appears Penn State is in a good position at this point on January 28th to be able to potentially land Kane Spell. There's some rumblings about some other things going on with him, about a potential reclassification, which has been talked about on Twitter. So again, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn there. Either those are just rumors. I'm not sure if that's something that's going to happen. I would just like him to be able to commit to Penn State. It was a bummer that he didn't come this past weekend with the snowstorm. He didn't make the trip, and like Cory said, he's expected to be in Georgia this coming week. So not great, but let's be real, guys. Even if he commits to us, this is going to be one that I'm probably concerned about to the very end because he is the cream of the crop level running back recruit. And while, this is one of the big differences between the NFL and college football as well. In college football, that top running back still means a lot. Like a Jeremiah Love, a Blake Corum. Like these guys are premium players and they will help you potentially win a national championship. So you'll hear the old adage, oh, you don't pay running backs. Well, in college football, if they're a special kind of player, they're definitely worth it. And Keelan Spell looks to be that potential. He has that potential to be that special kind of player. So I would like Penn State to be able to close on him, but who knows? It's a long way between now and December as well. So even if we get that commitment, I'm still not going to feel awesome about it until signing day.
Yeah, I've been committed before, so we'll have to wait and
true.
see on that one. There are officially 5 players that have officially locked in their visits for the summer. That I mentioned Khalil Taylor, wide receiver Khalil Taylor from Pine Richland, number 4 currently player in the state of Pennsylvania, according to 24/7 Sports. Gabe Jenkins from Imani Christian down in Pittsburgh, safety. He's top 5 in Pennsylvania, top 150 or so nationally. And Zachary Gleason Jr. from Central Catholic, which is a high school Penn State has had no problem recruiting in the past. And all 3 of them are scheduled for June 5th. And then Aiden Gibson, running back from South Carolina, has officially put a visit in. I don't know how to properly say that. And then finally, safety Jonathan Gallet from New Jersey, St. Joe, not the St. Joe, but St. Joseph Regional in New Jersey, 3-star guy as well, has officially locked in a visit. So I like talking about those guys first because there's a lot of offers being put out there right now. There's you go to 24/7 Sports or you go to On3 or Rivals, and there's these statuses and who's warm and who's interested, and here are the prospects. Proof in the pudding to me to a certain degree, and I think it's important to start with the people that are actually going to be visiting again this summer. And obviously, if you've been following us for a while, the summer and those official visits mean everything. And if you hadn't really been following recruiting, say in the last 5 years, and you thought the summer was kind of a dull part, that's definitely not the case anymore. And a lot of the movement now happens June and July, and that's when you really need to be paying attention. These official visits matter.
Yeah, if you don't get an official visit, you're probably not getting the guy. I think PSU Dylan. Do you want a depressing little nugget?
Yes, I love depressing nuggets on a cold Wednesday.
PSU Dylan pointed out that out of the rivals, they did their top 32 guys for the class of 2026. Out of the top 32, out of the 5-star guys, and they always rank 32 highest ranked guys as 5-star guys, Penn State had a total of 13 of them on campus. Penn State signed a total of 0.
I'm glad you said it out loud in case people are listening to a podcast. They wouldn't have been able to see the 0.
Yeah, exactly. And then I repeat things for emphasis. If you know the Drake and Josh reference.
I think Ryan Snyder posted about the Ohio State receiver too that committed that, and he ended up being a 5-star guy. And I'm just at some point, Ryan Snyder, I'm not asking you to be like the Notre Dame beat reporters that are obviously just fans, but at some point, can you stop hurting us? Can you stop just going out of your way to pick out a scab? Because he did something else like last week that I was
was it the Joey O'Brien thing?
No, I think there's that too though, but there was something else he did that I was like, forgot about the Joey O'Brien. No, there was something else where I was like, do you just want us to be in pain all the time? And I'm pretty sure it was Snyder. It might have been Fitz, but either way, can we just take it easy? It's middle of winter. We're still trying to recover a little bit, and you're just smashing us right now. Not appreciated.
Yeah,
not appreciated.
But yeah, and I also wanted to talk a little bit about those visits, Khalil Taylor and Gabe Jenkins. If those names sound familiar, they should be, because they were committed to Penn State at one point, and it'd be really nice. Like if they want to form like a base for this class, it would be great if they could just bring back, kind of put the band back together, and then we could really start looking, because there are some really impressive guys that I think are newly either rejuvenated interest or newly interested in Penn State. Another guy to keep an eye on as well is Peter Bork. You hear his name a lot pop up. He's currently committed to Michigan. He did commit to Shawn Moore's staff, and now Kyle Whittingham is up there. So I know he really liked Penn State. He committed sometime, I believe, either last spring or last summer, but didn't end up committing to Penn State. And I think he's somebody who should be on flip watch, and he's a really, really talented quarterback. So I would like him to be the quarterback in this class. He's from Massachusetts. Penn State has done well in New England over the years, and I think it would be a big flip opportunity for Matt Campbell and his staff.
First, almost spat all over the camera. First flip watch of the season for Shawn Kane. Appreciate you doing that. Anyone else in the 2027 class that you wanted to bring up right now?
Right now, I would probably say, everybody's gonna, and he's the first guy I talk about was Keemon Spell. Speaking of getting the band back together, I think it would be really big, because Penn State, sounds like a broken record, needs receivers. If they could get Matthew Gregory here and back and recommitted. He's right at the top of my list of guys that I would like to see back in this class. So if they're able to get him, that would be huge. I know I think On3 has him ranked the highest, and he's going to be a really, really good player from down in Pottstown.
Good old Pottstown.
You ever been to Pottstown?
No, I have not. Don't necessarily go out of my way to go to Pottstown, but all right. I think one thing I wanted to mention, Khalil Taylor was interviewed by Happy Valley United, and I don't want to say he threw shade. First of all, gave a lot of love. Like, this place was home initially, blah, 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 blah. But he straight up said that, like, the previous staff did not develop receivers. And so that's something that he's interested in, which why wouldn't you be as a receiver? So already, and here's the thing, like, this isn't going to turn into a James Franklin podcast, I promise you. But, like, that's something that completely does follow with the Franklin staff, which that really dark and ugly cloud has left Happy Valley. And I'm really obviously excited, but I'm also really just curious to see what happens with that stigma now gone, and how many top tier players give Penn State a true opportunity. Because it's not just that, it's also the fact that the other really, really good receivers coach / offensive coordinator from school to the west of us is no longer there too. And I'm not saying he's not going to recruit those areas as a head coach now, but there's a little bit of an opening, if there's ever been an opening, for Penn State to start getting some and amassing some recruiting talent at wide receiver. So I'm just very curious. I'm not saying 2027 is going to be all of a sudden amazing, But next 2 to 3 years, they're going to have an opportunity to do something regardless of what the productivity had been.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons James Franklin isn't coaching here anymore. Is the two I've talked before, what 5 most important positions are, and the 2 out of the 3 on offense are wide receiver and quarterback. And James Franklin had a rap for not being able to develop quarterbacks or receivers. At least in the past few years, he hasn't been able to develop receivers with multiple receivers coaches, and he's made some he had some questionable recruitments in quarterbacks as well, like bringing Beckham Kritza in. And we expressed concern about Beckham Kritza on the show, that he wasn't able to start for his high school team. And Franklin just stuck with them. So that was something that was following him and was going to be an issue. And I think powers that be were aware of that. Now, we are not hardcore James Franklin. We are hardcore Penn State football, and it's a new day. And we have one of the guys that I'm really excited about is our new receivers coach, and Noah Pauley, because he has that reputation to be able to develop receivers and get guys to the NFL. And I think it speaks to, I think his reputation kind of speaks for itself, and it's showing up in a lot of these recruiting battles and giving Penn State the best foot forward with a guy like Khalil Taylor, with a guy like Matthew Gregory, because you happen to have 2, top 150 recruits at the position that you need right here in your backyard. So it definitely makes me feel better that we have a guy like Noah Pauley here over a guy like a Marquise Hagans or whoever James Franklin was going to hire, because he hasn't had a good receivers coach here since Gaddis.
And it definitely makes you wonder how much it was on those guys. But regardless of all that, if you want more information on Beckham Kritza, please go follow our fellow associate account, Hardcore Alabama A&M, for more information on that.
I looked quick and I thought, oh, A&M, and then I was like, oh, Alabama A&M.
Not even Florida A&M.
No, not Florida A&M. I'd never even heard of Alabama A&M before. So,
yeah, Jacksonville State would have been pretty good. I mean, if you think about Alabama schools, like obviously Bama, Auburn, UAB, Jacksonville State.
Yeah, you lived there. Did you ever hear of this school?
I've heard of Alabama A&M.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily, like, there's even some schools in Mobile, Alabama that would maybe be a little bit more popular. There's another school. There's a
UNAB.
There's another Baptist school even in Birmingham too that a lot of folks go to. But besides the point, no, it up in I think it's up in Huntsville, I believe, and I think it's predominantly black. But anyway, good luck, Beckham Kritza. Hopefully, there isn't any sort of nepotism, bologna and cheese that a receiver is going to play quarterback in front of you. And we've hit our Liam Clifford quota for the episode. Okay, before we move on from recruits, I wanted to bring up, and I'm breaking the rules a little bit. I wanted to bring up one 2028 guy that visited. And then Shawn, maybe I'm going to impress you a little bit here. But Malvern Prep defensive end edge player in the 2028 class, George Parkinson IV, number 2 player in Pennsylvania right now. Again, 2028 class, so a long time away, but not terribly far away compared to, like, remember the 2027 guys were committed to Penn State a long time ago. Potential, I think, in my opinion, 6'4", 228, potential opportunity to even rise in the rankings. He's right around 50-ish, depending on where you look. I think, again, long way from getting home on this one, but potential 5-star opportunity here for this guy. And I don't even know if he's going to go to Penn State. So that just let you know, like, I think he, with his size and build and some of the huddle film I was watching a little bit earlier today, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he was on campus this past weekend for the junior day, even though he is a sophomore. So he is on this new staff's radar. I think the old staff was interested in him as well. But now that we're out of 2026 and we're starting 2027, it's fair to say this new staff is a little behind. And that's just kind of the nature of being a new staff, where with a guy like a George Parkinson, you have all this time between now and signing day 2028 to be able to establish that relationship, and you're not playing catch up. So yes, that's a great, I'm happy you brought him up, Cory. Great opportunity for Penn State to be able to get in front of him and really get to know him, and to have time to establish that relationship. Because when you think of what the previous regime's style was, I think you're going to find some similarities with a guy like Matt Campbell, in that they want to establish, in that they are relationship based. They're going to have a tight knit locker room, similar to what James Franklin had and both tried to have. So they're going to have time to be able to set up that relationship between now and 2028, and it would be really, really vital to be able to close with a guy like Parkinson.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're proud of me for that. And he was offered by the past staff as well. He made it clear that he was reoffered. But look, I mean, we're gonna start judging Matt Campbell based off of these in-state guys if he's able to pull them out. Again, he's not a 5-star guy yet, but he's gonna be a top 5, top 3 player in the state of Pennsylvania, and he's got offers from pretty much everybody. I think Oregon and A&M offered him not very long ago, so like it's national. He's not a well-kept secret by any stretch of the imagination. And look, Matt Campbell, you're a new hire. You get a little bit of a recruiting boost for some new momentum, which I want to talk about next, Shawn. But we know that doesn't last forever, and you have to continue to stack wins and whatnot. But it's very important to get off to a good start, and it's very important that you do nail some of these guys early on in the process. And so we'll have to wait and see if Matt Campbell's able to do that. But early indications are they're doing the right thing. Be curious to see defensive line coach Christian Smith. This is kind of his big first fish as well. So we're going to be very curious and excited to see what Christian Smith can do as well. We have lost Shawn Kane temporarily. While he's gone, I want to go to something, and I'm just curious maybe if YouTube chat can help us out while we lose Shawn so I can talk to somebody else. But you're hearing some things about the staff compared to the previous staff from some of the folks that have visited already. And there seems to be a certain level of excitement and passion and drive and activeness that maybe was dwindling in the previous staff. I don't know if it's fair to say they didn't have passion, but I've heard the word professionalism used quite a bit as well. And so, again, I think some of that is always going to happen. New staff comes in, there's going to be a new level of excitement. I think that's standard. It's human nature to a certain degree for people to get bored of kind of doing the same thing. Even if it's a thing that's winning, it's hard to consistently do the same thing over and over and keep that same level of excellence for a long time period. Especially when the wins aren't or the goals aren't necessarily being achieved. And so I do want to caution fans that are like, oh, wow, like all these recruits are overly excited about this new staff versus the old staff. I think you got to be careful about the sour grapes there to a certain extent. But I think you can also be excited that there is fresh look outlook on these things, and the staff is coming in with a mindset. And from what I've gathered so far, the personality thing and going after the right guys does not seem to just be like a ploy, or like everyone kind of says that. Matt Campbell seems to live it from what I've gathered, from what people have said, um, and whatnot. And I think it's summarized best. Now, again, just keep in mind the source. The source is coming from the NIL collective of Happy Valley United. So just keep that in your back pocket as I read this to you. But this is from Mike Villagrana, the executive director for football specifically at Happy Valley United. And he says, he tweeted out, from the conversations around Coach Campbell's first junior day, the tone was noticeably different, weather aside. Character, alignment, and the love for football carried more weight than stars and rankings. College football is changing. Now, I also took this for, this just happened right after Indiana won a national championship. And so I think it was tweeted on 4 or 5 days ago now. And so I wonder if there was some intention for that, on why that was the case. But I think there's no surprise, right? Indiana just won the national championship with 4 stars on their roster. And everyone's going to point to their age and whatnot. But I do think it's very easy to look at the previous regime and say, hey, we didn't have enough good players to make a difference, and sort of feel like you've been gaslit a little bit, because I don't want to say it when we'll talk about the Big Ten schedule in a second, but I think the expectations around the first season in Happy Valley are already beginning to pivot a little bit. In general, in college football, I don't know if you have as much of a leash or slack to get things moving in the right direction. Sure, they're not going to fire everybody right off the bat, but couple this schedule with what college football is now, and with the transfer portal and what Campbell's been able to bring in from Iowa State, there's going to be some expectations heading into the fall of 2026. So just keep that in mind. And I think it's important to watch sort of how that character, alignment, excitement in the recruiting world, how that continues to develop. And we'll see, we'll really know come the summer, and how that's going to work out. But Matt Campbell definitely seems like a guy who is going to want to make his final recruiting pitch on the field. And we'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess, in a handful of months. Dakota Stroll on YouTube says, I think the last head coach was great at coach speak, and Matt Campbell has a different level of transparency. Potentially. I think you're right. But obviously I'm hesitant to say that, given that I still might be in a honeymoon phase with all of it. So just kind of keep that in your back pocket. Still, I think we might got Shawn back. See if we can get him back here. Shawn, can you hear us? We can't see you, but we can. Oh, there we go. We got you back.
Okay.
While you were gone, I just kind of went through sort of the excitement around the recruiting and how people seem to think there's a little bit more level of professionalism and all of that. I went through it pretty detailed, but if you wanted to add elevator pitch to kind of summarize your thoughts on maybe some of the mood and the things you're hearing out of these first visits and whatnot, and how this coaching staff is being perceived in the recruiting world so far.
Yeah, I would echo that. Again, sorry for just having difficulties. I would echo that having a real GM makes this look more like it should, and not just having a figurehead, but everything goes through the coach. So, and you kind of saw it with roster retention too. Um, like take a guy like a King Mac, right? Who was very vocal about supporting the staff. Well, I mean, if you have a guy like him or some other people that getting along really well with the staff, but the front office might give them an offer that they're not crazy with, well, they still might hit the portal. And I don't think that was really happening as much with the previous staff. So I think that's something that recruits are more welcome to, because they understand that this is more, even though they're going to try to keep it as family like as it is, as it can be, they're still going to be under the impression that yes, this is a business and you have to hit such a standard in order to receive an offer. And then while you're at Penn State, you have to continue living up to your end of the bargain on that end as
Shawn, I'm going to
well.
see
So
if
yes,
it was
there's
just
much more of a business like a pro now.
I'm going to see if everyone else is having the same issue as me, but you
And
are
that's
coming
just
pretty
that's just
robotic.
how it is at all these big schools. And Penn State had to catch up in that regard.
Shawn, I might have you leave and come back because you're coming in really delayed and robotic. And I got confirmation that it's not just me. You might have to take that tinfoil hat off of the computer. For folks that are watching live, the audio version on the podcast platform will not have those issues. So you will not have to, if you want to catch back with what Shawn said there, you wanted his take on that, you should be able to see that hiccup free wherever you listen to podcasts. So whether that's on Spotify or Apple, wherever else it may be, that will be cleaned up in the non-live version. But we like to do it live here, so you guys can hear our takes. While he cleans up his life, we're gonna kind of pivot and move on, and talk a little bit about the 2026 transfers. I mentioned, they got a heap of players in the transfer portal, obviously, and we talked about a lot of them as they came in, but I just, for folks that maybe hadn't realized or hadn't been around as much, which I completely understand, taking a little bit of break from all of this. I just wanted to briefly kind of summarize what happened and kind of why or where Penn State stands today. So, again, just a reminder that they basically brought in, or they basically ended up with well over 30 players in the transfer portal. And I want to pull up the entire list here. 36 transfers. Of those 36, though, Penn State had a majority of them coming from Iowa State. They brought in 23 players from Iowa State. Obviously, some of the names to know, the tight end, Benjamin Bramer, the safety, Marcus Neal, which if you follow us on Hardcore PSUFB, you saw Marcus Neal and Tony Rojas doing a little TikTok video together. So take that for what you will, as well as cornerback Jeremiah Cooper. We'll see who else Shawn likes from those guys. One name I really like that didn't come from Iowa State, but Brock Riker, the center, I think is going to make an immediate impact. And then they brought in obviously a ton of defensive linemen, especially defensive tackles. Keanu Williams, a monster there at 6'5", 320, that I'm very excited about. Not just from a size perspective, but also from a leadership perspective. I think he could make some significant impacts there. And then obviously on an offensive perspective, Rocco Beck, the quarterback, one of the most tenured quarterbacks in the country. Excited to see what he can do. Chase Sewell, another guy that very excited about at wide receiver, and Trevor Burr, the offensive lineman, another guy that I'm very excited about, also coming from Iowa State. They do bring in 3 linebackers from Iowa State as well. I'm a little bit higher on them than Shawn is, but we'll be interested to see how those linebackers play out as well, and curious to see kind of the players that they brought over from Iowa State, how many of those guys are kind of developed young guys that they're not expecting a lot from, and then how many of those guys are immediate, we expect you to play, because I really think that's the sort of the 2 type of people that Matt Campbell and his staff took. Folks that would make immediate impacts, and then folks that he thought had the right size or speed or athleticism to potentially contribute down the road. And I don't really know if there's much of an in-between on either of those. And then finally, I would be remiss to at least not mention 2 other transfers, relatively big gets in my opinion. The edge from Colorado, Alexander McPherson, 6'6", 240, was sort of a guy who shot up the board immediately and visited Penn State and pretty much pulled the trigger right off the bat. And then running back from Ohio State, James Peoples, former 4-star out of high school, 94-84 rating, 5'10", 206 pounds. Excited to see what he'll be able to do. It's a very interesting running back room because they also bring in the Iowa State running back as well. And going to have to kind of see how that all works out, because you've got running backs for days with Carson Hansen as well as James Peoples. But then also you were able to retain some running backs on the current roster as well. And Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, by the way, doing very good in the senior day, Senior Bowl practicing and whatnot. But it's a very obviously young running back room, or I shouldn't say young, but unproven, at least at Penn State running back room. But I think we're pretty excited to see kind of how that all plays out. I think Hansen and Peoples are kind of the ones that we're expecting to fill the role, but we'll have to wait and see kind of how that all turns out. Okay. Not sure if we're going to get Shawn back on the show or not. So what we're going to do is I'm going to run through the Big Ten schedule, and then we're going to probably wrap this up, and we'll see if we can get Shawn back on for the next episode. As you guys know, and I'd be curious what your guys' take on the Big Ten schedule. I'll read your guys' comments live on the show as we wrap this thing up. But the Big Ten finally got their act together and put out the 2026 Big Ten football schedule, which completed the schedule for Penn State. So I'm just going to run through the entire schedule real quick. Penn State will open the season, which, by the way, if you haven't seen Penn State football's video, I thought it was really funny, really tremendous in how they unveiled it. I believe it was similar to what the Carolina Panthers did a little bit ago. Shawn, I was just saying I was just telling the people we might not get you back, and here you are. So,
yeah, we'll see. I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell's wrong with this, but
not a problem. I will say, Shawn, when we do wrap this up, because we're going to talk schedule next, hang out for a second, because I might have to email you a link and make sure your local recording gets uploaded, because it yelled at me when you left the first time. So okay. I might just need you to click a link, like we've done that before. Anyway, okay. I ran through the transfer portal stuff already, Shawn. Is there one guy that you wanted to mention from the transfer portal, though, that you're excited about?
I mean, the two names that stick out are definitely Rocco Becht and Marcus Neal. I feel like those are the really, I think those are the really well-known names. I would, I would probably go Neal. One, I think he's kind of a throwback, like a Marcus Allen type, but better ball skills. And then when you get a top 10 quarterback in the portal with the guy that's had the experience that Rocco Becht has, you're going to be pretty excited about him. Of course, don't mean to beat a dead horse here. I would have liked to keep Grunk, but Becht is a better quarterback right now on January 28th, 2025. So he knows the offense. I understand what Campbell was thinking. So I would probably go with those top two guys. The under the radar guy, I'll even give you one of those, is probably James Peoples. I think he could be a good back here. Wouldn't shock me if he ended up starting at some point.
There you have it. That's good because I didn't talk a whole bunch about Rocco Becht, so I appreciate that. Okay, the Big Ten schedule, Shawn. I'm going to run through it for everybody first, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Penn State opens the season September 5th at home against Marshall. Time to be determined, which all these times are to be determined, so I'm not going to say that every time. Then they're at Temple, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Shawn, is that the first time we'll be at Temple since we lost in 2015?
Yeah, we only played them one other time, and it was 2016. It was that little series that we had with them. So yeah, it's been a while since Penn State's played the Owls.
Yeah, it has been a while. We played out there under Joe in like 2010, 9-ish. I think Monty had an interception.
I think historically they've played a few times out there. They played at the old what's that called? Franklin Field too. Way back in the day. And then I think they ended up moving to the Vet, and then they were already at the Link by 2010. So yeah, it's been a while though. It feels like we used to play Temple almost, not on a yearly basis, but quite often, and that series kind of took a little time off.
Franklin was probably tired of losing to them, but Temple's really bad again, if anyone was curious about that.
Well, that's why they're back.
So after Temple on September 12th, they will take on the Buffalo Bulls on September 19th. And then they will kick off the Big Ten slate with Wisconsin at home on September 26th. They will then go to the road and take on Northwestern in their new stadium, Ryan Field Stadium. They'll be completed. And so we're excited about that. That's on October 3rd. And if you're curious, yes, they still have not had a bye week yet. Still, all these games are consecutive. They will then return home to face USC, Shawn, on October 10th, which potentially could be the whiteout.
Yeah, unless we get big noon, which everybody does not want, including probably a lot of USC fans. That will be the whiteout. I can't see it. Like, who would the other game be? Maybe Wisconsin? And Luke Fickell might get fired this year, so I don't know where else you'd put the whiteout except the USC game.
I'm trying to see if I can look into the future that far, but I don't know if it's going to like me trying to go that far back this early. But I thought someone said Indiana plays someone pretty decent, but I'm not as sure. That's October 10th, right? They're at Nebraska that week, so October maybe that could 10th, be. Yes. Maybe that could be it. Iowa's at Washington. Otherwise,
Does somebody? Why do I want
Oregon's at UC or Oregon
say
UCLA play.
somebody plays?
Oh, you're cutting out again.
Doesn't somebody play Oklahoma that day?
Not in the Big Ten.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if we got Big Noon. I don't think anybody really wants it, but Fox doesn't really care. So hopefully they pass on that game.
Okay, we are starting to lose you again a little bit, Shawn. But I don't know. Indiana, Nebraska just seems like a Big Noon game to me. I think that would be a pretty good game for a Big Noon. Just throwing that out there, Fox. Just throwing that out there. Obviously, this is kind of the part of the schedule that's going to make or break it. Sort of. Penn State takes USC on at home, and then they'll travel to Ann Arbor to take on Michigan on October 17th. So that is kind of your back-to-back games there that you would probably circle as kind of that makes the season. After October 17th at Michigan, they'll have a bye week, and then they'll take on Purdue at home. They'll have Purdue at home, and then they will come back and take on Washington at Washington on November 7th in Seattle. So USC, Michigan, Purdue at Washington. Sort of an interesting stretch there. Then they come back home to take on Minnesota. And then they will be back home to take on Rutgers on November 21st. And then the Saturday after Thanksgiving, they will be at Maryland. So if you kind of remember from a couple of years ago, it's a little bit more of a, call it centralized end, Big Ten East to a certain degree, centralized ending to the season. You get Rutgers and Maryland late in the year, kind of like it used to be in like in 2016s-ish or so. Kind of getting back to that a little bit with Rutgers and Maryland both at the end of the year. Those are easy trips. Obviously, Rutgers being at home, but then Maryland's a pretty easy trip as well. So again, Marshall at Temple, home Buffalo, home Wisconsin, at Northwestern, home USC, at Michigan, bye week, home Purdue, at Washington, home Minnesota, home Rutgers, at Maryland. I'm sure we will probably talk about this schedule once or twice before September 5th, if I had to guess. We lost Shawn Kane, unfortunately, again. What you should do, if you really want to stick it to us for having some technical difficulties today, comment and leave your comments on YouTube. Make sure you've liked the video first and then comment. But also, if you really want to stick it to us, drop us a 5-star review, because 5 shows how angry you are with us. Drop us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's on Spotify or Apple. Drop us that 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review and talk about how much Shawn needs to upgrade his equipment. So anyway, little bit of a slow start out of the gate for us here in season 5 of Hardcore Penn State Football. But thank you guys for being here. I'm glad we're back. And we will be recording more often this offseason than last offseason. So excited to be doing that. And until next time, I'm Cory Lestochi. That was Shawn Kane. You've been listening and watching Hardcore Penn State Football. Until next time, see you guys.